Hey, this is Rocket Brain Surgeon. Today we're looking at the T-34-1. This is a Tier 7 Chinese medium tank. It's actually one of those really great tanks that goes underappreciated by most people. The strengths of the T-34-1 are its incredible camouflage. It has better camouflage than most tanks in the game, whether stationary or moving or firing. It also has a very tough turret, lending itself to be the heaviest armored medium in Tier 7. Now, that armor only works if the tank is hulled down, but that's still a good trick that you can rely on. And the turret armor is not great against 200-odd penetration, but in Tier 7 games and against Tier 6 and Tier 7 opponents, you're going to be fine for the most part with that turret. And it'll even bounce a lot of 175 pen shots. The thickness is 170 millimeters in the front of the turret. With its curvature, it'll be effective up to a little bit more. The T-34-1 also has a very small stature, which is often underrated when people are looking at how good a tank is. If the shell doesn't hit you in the first place, that seems pretty good. The gun depression is subpar with only 5 degrees, but that's still workable. It's not too terribly crippling of the tank. A good gun depression would be about 8 degrees, so it's far off, but still usable. The view range is on the verge of average at 370, so it's definitely less than some medium tanks get in tier. However, it's definitely more than several heavy tanks get in tier, so it's not the greatest thing in the world. It's not the worst thing in the world. With its camouflage, it shouldn't be outspotted too terribly often. If the enemy's firing at you, you should be able to counter spot them, and you should be able to move around the battlefield relatively unscathed. You shouldn't face too many invisible tanks. So defensively, the T-34-1 is pretty great. The mobility of the tank is not tops in tier, but it's good enough to do what you need to do. You can get around the map just fine, so it's not going to race a T-20 to anything, but it's definitely no slouch. The offensive capabilities of the tank are definitely underrated. It has the second highest alpha in tier, only beaten by the quirky A-44. So 250 alpha in tier, that's going to be really good for a tier 7 tank. The penetration on the base round is 175. Again, second in tier only to the Panther. The tank gets APCR for its premium round, and at 235 millimeters of penetration, that's actually really good, and it's going to be able to deal with everything that you want to deal with. Now, the aim time and the reticle bloom are just going to be bad, and so is the accuracy. I mean, this is a Chinese tank. What do you expect? However, with that strong camouflage where you can aim unseen, with that strong turret where you can aim while hull down, it has just that staying power that allows you to take longer amounts of time to aim. The alpha is surprisingly effective in brawl situations and is high enough to be a credible threat to higher tier tanks. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the T-34-1 just doesn't have any situations where it's going to shockingly fail. There are some hills that are going to be moderately annoying because of the gun depression, but that's about it. In most situations, on most maps, you're going to have the tools that you need to win the game. The turret just bounced a shot from that IS. I mean, it seems pretty good when you can square off against heavies frontally in a medium tank. Enough about the T-34-1 proper, and a little bit more about the game. So this is one of those rare games where your team fails, but doesn't fail quite hard enough to where the game is just an auto loss. There's still a lot of opportunity here for a good player to turn the game around, and it's helpful to see someone like Garbad, what he's trying to do and what he's trying to accomplish. So there's an IS, and he really doesn't want to trade shots with the IS. Yes, you have 250 alpha, but you do not have 390 alpha like the IS does. So he backed up away from the trees. He was trying to play some vision games with the IS, having his teammates spot the IS while he shoots it, and then the foliage in front of him will hide him from the enemy. However, that's not really possible, so he kind of gets up near the foliage so he can spot, fire, and then duck behind a building quick. If you don't know, fallen trees do offer a camouflage bonus. It is less than if the bush was still intact and standing, but it does exist and it is good to use from time to time. The IS comes out and Garbad's snapshot hits, whereas the IS's does not. There are 2 artillery left, and this next stage of the game is called Whack-a-Mole. Here's a spot where I disagree with Garbad's choice of target, though I completely can understand the reasoning behind it. So the IS is at 23%, that's roughly 280 HP. He would really have to high roll the IS to kill him out, but in my opinion, the upside of the high rolling the IS greatly outweighs getting 1 shot of damage on the Wolverine. His thinking was probably, since he would necessarily have to high roll the IS, it's actually just better to get a shot where you know you can 2-shot the Wolverine and deal with the IS in a moment in case the IS messes up. Totally understand that, and yeah, it's just a slight disagreement, if anything. The point is moot because both tanks do get taken out, although there was some attrition damage taken. Now, this is a great spot for the T-34-1 because it's an endgame against lower tier tanks. The lower tier tanks are just not going to be able to spot the 34-1 for all intents and purposes. The fact that he got spotted there after firing was kind of weird to me. And Garbad shows some initiative by going out to hunt down artillery before coming back. I mean, what good is mobility if you're not going to use it? So he has that view range and camouflage advantage on his opponents and a mobility advantage. So the idea is he's going to go hunt down artillery and then be able to get back. And the reason why this is awesome is because the longer he sticks around base, just the more chances artillery have to whack-a-mole him. Garbad is pulling out and using auto-aim. The replay is a little bit messed up because it's a different replay version than game version. If you have not gotten on the auto-aim train, do so. It's actually very helpful in a lot of situations, a lot of brawl situations. The auto-aim aims towards the bottom center mass of the tank. So it used to put shots right into the mantlet, and that's why it got a bad reputation. But now it puts shots very low on the body of the tank. So Garbad is approaching the enemy who's sitting on the cap, and here we're going to learn about the spotting system. So, the top part of your tank, if that is visible, they can spot you. So he sees the tiniest part of the enemy tank, and the enemy sees the tiniest part of Garbad's tank, and this is a problem because now he is visible to artillery. Anyway, great technique throughout the game, great strategical thinking throughout the game, love it. Garbad wrote up a full review, link in the comments of the T-34-1. Hope you enjoyed. Happy hunting.